Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Crowd Chatter podcast. And today we are going to be doing some more NCAA basketball. The tournament is beginning to wind down, and there with it is March Madness. So we are getting very close to the end now. Um, we have the entire Final Four set. So kind of like last time when I did the last video, except I'm not gonna do it region by region this time because there's not nearly as many games. I'm gonna review the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight games, and then I'll just make my picks for the Final Four and then the championship because my entire Final Four, my entire bracket is just beyond dead. So I'm going to just repick everything. Don't even bother look. I wouldn't even bother looking at my bracket anymore. It's so pathetic that it really doesn't even matter. So moving on to so we go to the first game here. We have Gonzaga taking on Arkansas. Arkansas nearly lost to a 12 and a 13, so I did not have much high hopes for. Or I'm sorry, 13 and a 12, 12 and a 13, the same thing. So I didn't have many high hopes for Arkansas to be able to actually knock off Gonzaga. I really did not. But Arkansas, shockingly, pulled the upset and knocked off the one seed Gonzaga and moved on to the Elite Eight. This just came out of nowhere. I did not expect Arkansas to really put up have as good of a game as they did. I knew Gonzaga was not that special. I thought they'd lose to Memphis, and they almost did. And instead, Arkansas was the one that got the better of them in the Sweet 16. Gonzaga, as I expected, took an early exit, just not as early as I thought it would be. Still shocking, though. I did not see Arkansas winning that game. And then the other game in the Midwest region here, we had Texas Tech taking on the Duke Blue Devils. Coach K in his final season, with a win in this game, he would have 100, or was it the game before? No, it was this game. With a win in this game, Coach K would have 100 career tournament wins. He'd already gotten 1,200 career overall wins. But with another tournament, with a win against Texas Tech in San Francisco, he would have a total of 100 career tournament wins. And that's exactly what Duke did. They just barely squeezed out the win against Texas Tech. This was a back and forth game, very fun to watch. Very, very close throughout. Texas Tech almost did it, but just came up a tad bit short, and the Blue Devils moved on and made it to the Elite Eight. They would take on the Arkansas Razorbacks, which let's actually just go to that game right now. Arkansas, Duke. I thought this could have been interesting. I thought it'd be a decent game, but this just seems to be the year for Coach K. He wins the Midwest region and heads to the Final Four, and heads to New Orleans. Huge win for Duke, and are simply 2 games away from getting Coach K a national championship in his very last season. It'll be fun to see if that actually happens. Here we have North Carolina and UCLA. This is in the what region is this? The East region. But UCLA, North Carolina, I thought this was going to be an incredible game, and that's exactly what it was. UCLA, Jaime Jaquez did actually play in this game for UCLA. He was healthy. North Carolina, of course, they had that game against Baylor that looked pretty ugly at the end. Obviously, if you've seen my last video of all the different regions and all the games, there was a lot of shaky refereeing, but North Carolina still won the game after blowing a 25-point lead. Now in this game, they'd play UCLA. It would be close back and forth. Both teams would it'd be close throughout all the way, but the Tar Heels would come on top. And I think I picked UCLA in this one. Yeah, I did. but the Tar Heels would come up on top. They would knock off the Bruins. They would make it to the Elite Eight to play the winner of Purdue and St. Peter's. I can tell you right now, nobody on the planet gave St. Peter's a chance in this game. St. Peter's only the the third 15 seed. St. Peter's only the third 15 seed to ever make it to the Sweet 16. First was Florida Gulf Coast in 2011, and then the second was actually last year with Oral Roberts, who made it, beating both Ohio State and Florida, and would just come up short by 3, or was it 2? I think it was 2. Came up short by 2 to 3 seed Arkansas. But this St. Peter's team, they have beaten who I think is not a not special Kentucky team and overrated Murray State team, and now they get to play the Purdue Boilermakers. I thought this would be a blowout. I didn't give St. Peter's much of a chance in this one. I thought because I was not high on Kentucky's team. I wasn't high on Murray State's team. But guess who came on top? St. Peter's shocks the world, takes down the Boilermakers. The 3 seed goes down, and St. Peter's, the 15 seed, mind you, makes it all the way to the Elite Eight. St. Peter's, the first ever 15 seed, and actually the lowest ever seed to make it to the Elite Eight. First 15 and the lowest ever, because I think the lowest ever is a 12. And a 13 and a 14, neither one of those, and neither a 13 or 14 have made it to the Elite Eight, and neither has a 16, obviously. That they haven't even made it to the Sweet 16. But shocking here for St. Peter's. 14, I don't even think a 13 or 14 have made it to the. No, they made it to the Sweet 16. I don't really remember the numbers on that. I just know neither of them have been to the Elite Eight. But St. Peter's, the first ever and lowest ever 15 seed to make it to the Elite Eight. And now they would take on the North Carolina Tar Heels in Philadelphia. Yeah, this the hometown crowd for St. Peter's was not much of a challenge. North Carolina would dominate this one, and then North Carolina would head to New Orleans to create what would be a that's not right. For what would create a really cool matchup of Coach K and North Carolina in a Final Four. Very, very interesting there of North Carolina and Duke in the Final Four. First time, I believe, first time that these two teams have ever faced each other in the Final Four. Now we go to the other side of the bracket here, and we have the first Sweet 16 game. We have Arizona taking on Houston. I'm not big on Houston's team. They're very good defensive. They're very good at defense and rebounding, and that is really about it. I thought Arizona would win this one and they would move on. Instead, the opposite happened. Houston more or less had this game all the way through. They played a fantastic game, knocked out the number 1 seed. Leaving only at that point, I believe, because Gonzaga was gone too. At that point, they would only leave one seed remaining in the Kansas Jayhawks. And then the bottom of the bracket here, we would have Michigan taking on Villanova. I hate to break it to people, I did not think Michigan would win this game. And they didn't. They lost, as I expected. As I expected, Villanova would win this one. They would knock off the Wolverines. They made it to the Elite Eight, taking on Houston. I thought it would be Arizona, but they took on Houston instead. Michigan's play in this game was just very putrid. It looked like the same team we saw before this Tennessee game. In this Tennessee game, they were great, but the difference between this game and this game, 2 things. Michigan, they shot the basketball well. and there was no Devontae Jones. This game, they did not shoot the ball well, and there was Devontae Jones. So you can kind of tell I have a serious disdain for Devontae Jones. I don't like the guy. I really wish he would have had Severe Wheeler because I think he would have been significantly better than Devontae Jones because Wheeler doesn't turn it over constantly. Um, but Michigan looking very had an incredible end to this season. Got to the Sweet 16. That's way farther than I had. That's farther than I had them. I had them losing this game right here. Instead, they won, knocked off Tennessee. But over here, their defense was incredible, but they just could not put the ball in the basket. I mean, they missed shot after shot after shot, wide open layups. I mean, it was really quite saddening the amount of shots that they kept missing. But they would lose in another matchup they would have against the Villanova Wildcats. Wildcats would move on to the Elite Eight, of where we would have a matchup between the Wildcats and the Cougars. This was such a bad game. I really was hoping Arizona would win, so that it would be actually kind of like fun to watch. This game was so boring. It was so slow. The guys were barely making any shots. Villanova would win this one though. They would knock off Houston, who really could not get shots down either. But Villanova would knock off the Cougars. They would move on to the Elite Eight, and they would take on the winner of the West region, I believe is what this one is. The West region, and it's the South. The top one's the West, or I don't know. I might have that wrong. I don't know. This one we have Kansas and Providence. Providence is a very experienced team. They had an incredible season in the Big East, and they were able to knock off South Dakota State. Almost got upset against South Dakota State, and then just blew Richmond off the floor. And then get a chance to take on the Kansas Jayhawks. Kansas was the Kansas was the lone number one seed standing at the time of this game. The Kansas Jayhawks going up against Providence. Providence could not hit shots to begin this game. They really struggled throughout. They eventually would pull back in. They would get a lead for a short period of time, but Kansas would take it back. They would knock off the Friars. They would move on to the to the Elite Eight, of which I had them going to the Elite Eight, so I was right. And then we had the really interesting one in the bottom here of the 11 seed and the 10 seed, Miami, Florida, and Iowa State, the Cyclones and the Hurricanes in the Windy City. Really ironic. Iowa State had an incredible season. They had such a great start to the year and ended it really rather poorly. And now have been a nice stretch. They beat LSU in round one. Over here, they beat Wisconsin, who I think is overrated, but they beat Wisconsin and get to the Sweet 16. Miami would knock off USC and then would knock off Auburn in the next round. Now would come to take on Iowa State. Miami, Florida, the 10 seed in this one. It really was not Iowa State. I think their flame finally burned out. They could not hit shots in this game. They struggled throughout. Miami, Florida, more or less coasted to a easier win against the Cyclones. Miami, Florida, the ACC, even with only 5 teams in the tournament, would have 3 of those 5 in the Elite Eight. And Miami, Florida, in their first ever Elite Eight appearance, would take on the Kansas Jayhawks. And this one was ugly. Kansas dominated the Hurricanes in the second half. It was not close. Kansas would easily move on to the Final Four, of where they now will have a chance to take on Villanova for a chance at a championship. I repicked in the last one. I took Kansas to move on. You can see these were my picks for the championship game from the beginning, and they still are. And we have Villanova, and so now we're gonna repick the Final Four and the national champion. I'll probably end up repicking it again because it's gonna keep changing constantly. But the first game is going to be right here, Villanova and there we go, Villanova and Kansas. This is going to be a fun one. Villanova's team is really almost exactly like Providence. It is very experienced, and they have they're very experienced. The only difference about Villanova is I'd say their team is probably. I mean, it has the same experience as Providence, but I'd say their guys are probably slightly more talented than Providence. This Villanova team very good defensively, and Colin Gillespie is just unbelievable. I mean, that guy is just a player. I mean, he is outstanding for the Wildcats. I think Colin Gillespie in this game will be the difference whether Villanova wins or not. No Justin Moore for Nova. He is out for the season, torn Achilles, I think, or was it ACLs? He tore something, but he's out for the season, so he will be out for this game. This should be a really fun one. I believe that this will be very interesting to see. It could be. I think it's going to be a really close one. Kansas has a really high-powered offense. You got Oshia Baji, Justin, or not Justin Moore, Justin Wilson. Isn't it? Is it Justin Wilson? Jalen Wilson. Jalen Wilson. David McCormick, of course, Christian Brown, really, really good shooters and offensive players on that team. I think it's going to be a great game to see. But I think the one seed in the Kansas Jayhawks are going to move on to New Orleans, to the New Orleans. Move on. They'll stay in New Orleans. They'll get to the championship game. And then we have just will be a fantastic one here on the other end, Duke and North Carolina. First time this a historic rivalry will be taking place in the Final Four and or in the NCAA tournament, and it takes place in the Final Four. This is gonna be so much fun. North Carolina's team has willed its way. North Carolina has willed its way to the Final Four. Duke is in its last year playing as what, or Duke has Coach K in its last year, trying to send them out on a high note. This is gonna be war. North Carolina, Duke. You can't get much better than this for a Final Four game, and then also having Villanova and Kansas on the other side, which we've seen those two playing in the Final Four multiple times already before, and now we have the historic rivalry on the other side. It's going to be a ton of fun. I think it's going to be down to the wire, but I'm taking Duke's team to knock off the Tar Heels here because of a couple reasons. First of all, North Carolina significantly lacks the depth significantly lacks depth, and it will come back to bite them at some point. I think this is the game that it will do so. Also, this is Coach K's last year for Duke. There is no way that this team is not going to give this game everything they have. There's no way that Williams and Bancaro and Griffith and Duke is going to come out to play. And I do think it's going to be very close, and I would not be entirely surprised to see North Carolina come on top. But I'm taking the not Tar Heels. I'm taking the Blue Devils by like a half an inch here. It's going to be very close. And then in the national championship, we have Kansas and Duke. I think defense is kind of going out the window in this game, but it's Coach K's last year. I think they're on a mission. I considered taking them as a champion at the beginning of the year, but I'm taking them to win the championship now. It's going to be a great game. I think Kansas's team is pretty stinking good, and they've played pretty well throughout this year. They took down Providence. They will have taken down Villanova and Creighton. a lot of Big East teams, I didn't realize. We'll play Creighton, Villanova, and Providence. Wow, I guess they like the Big East. But this is going to be a really good game. But I think this is the year for Coach K. I think he goes out on a championship. I mean, this is kind of what I want, but this is also what I think is likely going to happen. Um, but I think he goes out on a high note, and Coach K takes home a championship and retires in his last season. It's going to be a very good Final Four, and it's going to be one to see, and it's not going to be one to miss. Thankfully, I have the day off, and I also have the championship day off. But that's all for me, guys. It's going to be very fun. I'll be doing another video next week before the actual championship. Just review the Final Four games and then basically go through the championship. I'll probably just still take Duke unless I have to take somebody else. But that's all I have. It's going to be a great Final Four. It's going to be some great games, and hopefully the weather outside can get better because I'm really getting tired of the winter weather up here in Michigan here. I like to get some, instead of getting like the 30, low 30, mid 30 weather, I'd love to be getting like, I don't know, maybe even like mid 50s would be at least nice. Like, I'm tired of winter weather and snow. It's almost April. So that's all I got for today. Until next time, adios, everyone.